Hey there, my name is Alex. I am the Silvermont, and in this video we're going to look at the strongest of the female characters we've encountered throughout the Souls franchise. Last time we covered the male characters, and my thoughts were that Havel was perhaps the champion there. Of course, this is just talking about NPCs, that is to say, not boss characters, which had their own 2 videos. And of course we won't be including the level up characters here, as they had their own as well. That out of the way, let's get started. There's a good offering here from which we can pick. Yuria the Witch, Selen Vinland, and Marauder would strike me as the top 3 however. You might well want to include Mephistopheles as well, but let's talk about her first, shall we? She encourages the Slayer of Demons to assassinate various figures throughout the Nexus. She has been instructed to silence those who know of the soul arts, but something I think that is very telling, she almost entirely relies on Yurt and the player to do the actual killing. Now of course you could say this is simply a smart move, getting others to do the deed for her, but it could also suggest that she isn't all that capable an assassin by herself. Some of her marks are quite formidable fighters or magicians, Yuria for example. But Patches, if she needs assistance with putting that lout down, it might put things in perspective. Even so, she's a high-ranked member of her society, and she is capable of giving you the good old soul suck. Executioner Marauder on the other hand is our powerhouse here. Using the guillotine axe, she hits like an absolute truck and is wildly devoted to her king. There is a suit of armour near her execution grounds which could belong to Valifax, Bior's counterpart in the Twin Fangs. So whilst you could look at this as a suggestion that she overpowered him, it's just as likely she pushed him down a hole, or that it's not Valifax at all. The armour's description, upon double checking, is vague enough that we almost have a Havel situation here. Is the armour unique, or is it the ring, or the weapon that belongs to the Twin Fangs themselves? But moving from brute force to soul arts, we have Witch Yuria. Despite being locked up and a prisoner, there's no denying that Yuria has some fearsome magic at her disposal. Seemingly to specialise in fire magic, she has Firestorm, one of the strongest of the soul sorceries, one that mimics the power of the Sultan of Chaos, the Dragon God. She will also teach the Slayer of Demons many advanced magics, including Soul Suck, the sorcery that instantly kills anything not in possession of a demon's soul. Finally, this Selen Vinland, the dull gold counterpart to her dark silver brother. A fighter capable of using miracles in melee both, she wields a special weapon known as Blind, which ignores the defense of a shield. It is also feather light to boot. That said, I don't see that offering her much of an advantage here, do you? As it happens, none of the other characters we're talking about use shields, so that would be a pointless advantage. That said, she can use anti-magic field, which would rain all over Yuria's parade. Her armour also has, I believe, the highest defence against magic, tied with her brother's. Overall, I think it's fairly safe to say that unless Yuria manages to one-shot Selen, she has the overwhelming advantage, thanks to her armour's high resistance to magic and her anti-magic field. But Marauder, I think she's going to make short work of Selen on account of her crushingly powerful axe. And Selen's lack of a shield doesn't help. But then I think Yuria would be able to defeat Marauder, so we've got a bit of a rock paper scissors situation. They all seem fairly evenly matched. First up, no Priscilla, no Quelaag. They are bosses after all. Quelaag's sister, the Fair Lady, is probably a no-show considering how poorly she is. But Quelana is a natural pick, the mother of pyromancy. Witch Beatrice is another powerful caster. No point including Alvina as cats are immortal, but Lordsblade Kieran, the Dark Moon Knight, and Sieglind of Katarina are all worthy inclusions. There are other characters of course, such as Man-Eater Mildred and Rhea of Thoroland, but I don't see them as being all that strong personally. In terms of casters, it's hard to put anyone above Quelana. Even Big Hat Logan, the genius of soul sorceries whose spears are said to be on par with Gwyn's Sunlight, doesn't get a title as impressive as Mother of Pyromancy, although Seath was known as the grandfather of sorcery. Quelana, however, has access to all of the strongest pyromancies, obviously. Being a daughter of the Witch of Izalith, and seemingly the last to retain both her humanity and her sanity, she's no pushover. Of course, fighting her in-game is a bit of a pushover, and funnily enough, Quelana shares a voice actor with Witch Yuria, as well as the Dark Moon Knight, or whatever you're inclined to call her, Keeper of Anolondo's Fire, Guardian of Darkmoon Tomb, adherent to Gwyndolin. She has one of the best armor sets in the game, which I enjoy using the sword version of, and the best weapon buff in the game, Darkmoon Blade. And if you've been on the receiving end of her weapon, you'll know that it can pack quite a punch. She is probably more than a match for Sieglind of Katarina, but even if little Lyn doesn't seem too much of a fighter, it's important to remember that she manages to explore Lordran mostly unscathed, with the exception of being trapped in a golem for a while. Even her father needed our help on more than one occasion. That is why I think it's good not to overlook her. Plus, she puts her father down in the end when he goes hollow. We don't know exactly how much fighting skill or power that hollows retain, but at least from the gameplay, we can assume that most of it is kept. Lord's Blade Kieran, on the other hand, is a very tough one. She's an assassin and one of Gwyn's 4 knights, with 2 powerful weapons and knowledge of Lloyd's talismans. I think she would win in a fight against Lyn. But if we're talking between Quelana, the Darkmoon Knight, and Kieran, that is a tough one. The latter two seem all but evenly matched as far as I'm concerned, but I think Quelana would best either of them, unless Kieran got the drop on her. She is an assassin after all, and backstabs are so powerful. An interesting one, for Dark Souls 2 is packed with NPC invaders who have no story, no dialogue, and show up just to help you with a boss or two or hinder your attempts. But aside from characters such as Felicia the Brave, Manhunter O'Hara, and Abbas Fever, we have the actual NPCs who we can look at. And I think that would largely come down to Lucatiel of Mirror and Lycia of Lindelt. Of course, we could include Sweet Xiaohua, but it's unfair because cats are the most powerful thing in the Dark Souls universe. Rosabeth of Malphia is not all that competent, if you ask me. She has some pyromancy at her disposal, but I imagine she'd set herself on fire before any enemies. There's also Alsana, not a boss, so she is an NPC but would likely have the strength of a boss, it can be argued. But all her siblings that we know of are bosses. Nishandra, Nadalia, and Ilana. Would she too have might within her? Despite her inclination towards fear, I would think so. She is a child of the Abyss after all. But while she might have that strength, I'm not sure if she would ever use it. Lucatiel then is perhaps the best swordsman of the bunch. By her own admission, she was never able to defeat her brother, Azlatiel. She believes that he was effectively the best swordsman in all of Mirror. So there's two ways to look at this. On the one hand, if he truly was the best swordsman, that would probably make her number 2, which is still damn impressive. On the other hand, she vastly exaggerated his prowess in her own mind for one reason or another, perhaps as justification for why she could never best him. We are able to defeat both of them in-game, and of course neither exactly show anything outside of the ordinary, but there's never much to go by there. From the story presented to us, however, there is no reason to doubt Lucatiel's skill. As for Lycia of Lindelt, she's an odd one. Fighting her in-game is a challenge because she has a huge amount of health and miracles that can one-shot you even at high level, but how much of this plays into her canon defined strength? When the game came out, I strongly argued against Lycia being the Nameless Usurper for several reasons. A, they had different models. The Nameless Usurper had a completely different face and was blonde, and the most important point, B, you could kill Lycia and the Nameless Usurper would still invade. That is flat out impossible in the Souls world. If you destroy someone's physical body, they are dead and gone forever. Killing an invader merely banishes them from your world. Killing the host, physical body, kills them permanently. Fortunately, they did patch away that inconsistency, leaving only the first point. Now if you kill Lycia, the usurper won't invade, which is enough for me to believe they are one and the same. And yet, why doesn't Lycia use any of her miracles? The logic of she didn't want to be recognised doesn't make that much sense, considering she's still wearing the same clothes, and it is by the clothes that we identify her, despite having a different model and face. What is easier, changing your clothes or changing your entire face and your hair? Either way, Nameless Usurper is a pushover, doing nothing more than flailing ineffectually at the bearer of the curse with a dagger. Lycia, on the other hand, has tremendous health and powerful miracles, and yet nothing in her storyline suggests that she should be in possession of such immense strength, unless we're assuming she's another daughter of Manus? Her name does fit the trend, and she is a wicked individual. It might explain as to why she's invading as a usurper close to Nishandra. I wonder what she might represent. Avarice? Greed? Then again, she doesn't appear to possess an abyssal soul, so this is probably just a fancy. It came to me just as I was saying this. I can't believe I've never considered it before, but wouldn't that be weird if Lycia was another daughter of Manus? But yes, she doesn't have an abyssal soul, so probably not. Merchant Hag Melentia may be able to curse you with her weird strikes, but I don't think anyone would consider her much of a threat beyond that. So it comes down to Lucatiel and Lycia, which I think Lycia would probably end up winning. If we're talking the in-game version with her large health pool and powerful attacks, lore-wise I think Lucatiel would probably win, unless Lycia really was a secret child of the Abyss. Maybe Lucatiel could stunlock her into oblivion though. It seems a good portion of the characters in this video all share one voice actor. Witch Yuria, the Dark Moon Knight, and Krillana, and now Carla from Dark Souls 3. All of them share the same voice actor, and they are quite similar characters too. Carla is my pick for strongest caster in Dark Souls 3. On the one hand, she is an accomplished trainer, but more importantly, there is a strong implication to my eyes that Carla is another child of Manus. You can see my lore video on her if you're interested in finding out more of my thoughts on that topic. As a quick aside, Carla will even briefly talk about Krillana, which is entertaining considering they share a voice actor. But there's also Yuria, Yuria of Londor, different from Witch Yuria. She wields a blade not unlike Selen's Blind, the katana known as Dark Drift. And whilst Carla was very similar to Demon's Yuria, Dark's Yuria is very similar to Demon's Mephistopheles. Keeping up? Both are dark-garbed, masked individuals of a mysterious culture or society who request assassinations from the player character. Although, Yuria seems somewhat more capable of combat than Mephistopheles in my opinion. Plus the game flat out tells us Yuria is an accomplished swordswoman who supposedly claimed 100 lives with Dark Drift. So whilst it is supposedly she claimed 100 lives, the game is flat out saying she is an accomplished swordswoman. Outside of Yuria and Carla, we also have Rosaria, Cirrus, and several smaller characters such as Hazel, Cuculus, I don't even know, and Kremheld. Rosaria certainly has great power of a sort in her capabilities. Whether she is some manifestation of Guinevere or a handmaiden of the old god, she is divine in some way or another, but I don't think her powers are inclined towards might either way. Cirrus, on the other hand, we know she's a good fighter, and almost a new incarnation of the Dark Moon Knight, but to some large extent she is reliant on the player character in most of her feats. Statistically speaking, Cirrus may have the advantage, but I feel it would be close between her and Yuria, and I'm inclined to give the win to Yuria. So what about Carla versus Yuria? Going by in-game, I would probably give it to Yuria, as Carla has no real magics capable of dealing absurd amounts of damage like Yuria from Demon's Souls, or Lycia. It's fun talking about Yuria when there's two of them, huh? It's also worth considering that we have two things we can extrapolate from Yuria and Carla. Both likely have sisters fought as bosses. In Yuria's case, we have Elfrida, who we know is Yuria's sister, and we can get a pretty damn good idea of her power when we fight her. And if Carla is what I suspect her to be, we can look at Nishandra and Alana for an idea of her true strength. And that would be a battle to see, wouldn't it? Story-wise though, I feel Carla would have the edge. Yuria's main advantages don't seem like they would be of particular use against a dark magic using witch, if you ask me. So who might the strongest be amongst these mighty maidens? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments, or hell, just let me know your favourite. Perhaps it was a character I didn't cover here. As for me, I think it comes down to Yuria from Demon's Souls, Kieran from Dark Souls, Luke Teal from Dark Souls 2, and Carla from Dark Souls 3. It was hard picking between most of them, as they all seem fairly evenly matched at times, but this hinges on the notion that Kieran is able to assassinate from the shadows. Unfortunately, we have no real idea of how competent or not she is. We can only assume she's very damn good at it, seeing as Gwyn made her one of the 4 knights. It also hinges on the assumption that Carla is a daughter of Manus in some way. There's no flat-out confirmation of that, but I think it would give her the edge over Yuria. So now we have a situation where it's a bunch of spellcasters and Kieran. Depending on the venue, I could either see her winning or doing little enough of anything. If Kieran was able to get the drop, I don't see why she wouldn't be able to defeat any of the others here, or all of them in fact, given her very strong weapons. But in open combat, Yuria would be able to one-shot just about anyone here with Firestorm, if we're going by the in-game version. So if we take Kieran out of the picture, we instead get an entertaining mix of characters all trying to charge up their strongest magic in one go. On that note, I think Yuria has the strongest magic here. Of course, if we picked Krellana instead of Kieran for the final bout, I think she would have the advantage because, you know, she has Flash Sweat and other ways of mitigating fire damage. Of all the characters, I believe she is the best caster amongst them, given her role in essentially creating pyromancy. Carla and Yuria I could see being evenly matched, but with Carla having the slight edge. Melee fighters, Lucatiel seems like one of the best all-rounders to me, but Yuria from Dark Souls 3 and the Dark Moon Knight are nothing to scoff at. But how much would all of this have changed if we'd included Bloodborne in the fray? Perhaps we'll look at that in the future. For the time being, thank you so much for watching, hope this video was entertaining in some way, and until next time, you take care.